Hi, everybody. It's Kevin and it's Marina from RPH Ally and the Herbalism Show. Super excited to see you guys today. I will be a learner just like you guys on the plant energetic side. Marina has given me some like background detail in previous episodes, just kind of a teaser almost. But I'm really excited to kind of jump into what it is, how to conceptualize it, and how to use it in care. So stay tuned. We'll talk to you in a second. Marina, I'm super excited to see you. Gosh, we got less than a month, right? And I'll be
Yeah,
able to see you and your family in Cincinnati. That is so much fun.
yeah. For everyone listening, we're heading to the Healers in Healthcare conference. So if you want more details, we'll put some links down in the show notes. We would love to see you there. There's still tickets available, and we're going to be vendors. So please come and say hello at our booth.
Yeah, it'll be a fun kind of intimate group, I think, and that's the way that every conference should feel. Going to some of them, Marina, like the big ones, I just felt like my limbs were being pulled off from me just in every direction. You just didn't have enough time. And so it'll be so nice to be able to spend more time with the folks that we get to see there and really get into detail on some really interesting things happening with the next kind of evolution of healthcare that we're all feeling and seeing in lots of ways. And the other thing that I did see that Christina plugged is there is the ability for you guys to sign up for a virtual element. It will be after the event. But Marina and I, we'd love to see you in person. So just come and see us there. And then also remember to check out Marina's podcast. Marina, tell us some more about that before we get started.
Yes, absolutely. So I run the Holistic Pharmacy podcast, and I would love for you to tune in. We've got amazing guests talking about how they ventured outside of the proverbial box and branched out and did something different with their pharmacy degree. A lot of times it ties into the holistic approach or perspective. And sometimes I have outside experts that are not pharmacists. So I'd love to see you there.
Awesome. Awesome. Yeah, no, it's fantastic. I've watched several episodes and I really learn something every time. And speaking of learning something every time, plant energetics. Please, so reading the word plant energetics, it makes me think that I'm going to put some Mountain Dew in my ficus, but I'm sure that's not it.
Yeah, I love that perspective. And really, it does come to conceptualization, like you said before. So I like to describe it as herbalism and some of the holistic approaches out there. You really have to look at the qualitative aspects of
Okay.
these modalities versus the quantifiable and the quantitative. So it's almost like the subjective and objective, right? Measurable. And so energetics is like something that you can't always measure directly. But you can experience it, and we use our five senses to measure it. But again, it doesn't always have something that is an objective measure. So a lot of times it's going to come down to individual approach. And so how we talk about it is that there are really three forces at work when it comes to matching the proper modality, medicine, herb for an individual person. So one is, who is the person? What energetics do they possess? And yeah, I'm loving the comments coming in. Please keep them coming. If you have no idea what plant energetics are, or if you do, please put your questions or your experience with us down below. So the person is the number one thing that we look at, because we need to match the quote unquote medicine to the person themselves. So not every medicine is going to match up to the person. So that's one factor. And it's different from the Western approach in that way, because we have protocols and we have guidelines, and it's really based on, okay, if the person falls in these parameters, this is what we're going to do. This is step 1, 2, 3. So it's very easy, like paint by numbers. And on the one hand, it's nice to have protocols like that. But on the other hand, that's why some of them fail, because we didn't do the front end investigation. And there's not much stewardship going on yet. Like we're starting to see it in antibiotics and other things. But This is why we talk about the energetics principles in herbalism and other holistic modalities, because so the person is going to matter. So not every person is going to respond to the same treatment, right? So we look at the terrain, right? The terrain of the person. What's this person's constitution, we call it? What kind of person is this? What kind of, approach should we have to this specific person? This also will affect the dosage as well. Some people are more high dose, some people are more low dose, sensitivity, things like that. Their mindset, their culture, all the things we talked about before too. So physically, what is their terrain, emotionally, and all of that. So it's kind of like this energetic concept of how we're trying to qualify the person. The second part is what plant or whatever modality we're considering, what are the energetics of the plant. So in this case, let's talk about herbalism specifically. Which plant are we going to choose? What energetics are we going to look for in the plant itself? So yes, we know constituents, yes, we know actions, but also there's a lot more than just phytochemicals inside a plant. So we can look at the energetic principles of like, is it dry, is the condition, is the plant itself drying or warming or cooling, or is it expansive, is it solid? So there's a lot of descriptive words and qualities that we see in the plant. And then the third thing is the condition that the person presents with. So we're trying to match all these three things up to come up with a proper remedy. So the condition is the imbalance, right? So maybe the person is generally runs hot, but he comes down with a cold, let's say. So we're treating a cold condition or a damp condition if they're all congested. I'm a little stuffy right now, actually. I don't know if you can tell, but so we're trying to see like, what is this condition? What is the energetics of the condition that they're presenting with that we want to treat? And how does it throw the person off balance, right? So we want the person to feel their best, but your best may not be the same as my best. I may like to be a little bit, warmer, or you may like to be a little bit cooler, vice versa. So it's kind of like, how do we get the person back to how they feel best? And it may be different for you and for me. So how is this condition that they're presenting with or diagnosis throwing this person out of balance? And then what's the plan that we can match to this specific condition that this specific person is coming to you with? And so those are like the three things that kind of we consider, and we consider the energetics of all of them to find what's our approach going to be. So yes, there are plant and herbal protocols. And yes, sometimes we just have it as a diagnosis and as a generalization. But within each case, we also try to be mindful of, okay, how do we simplify it? How do we customize it? How do we individualize it to this specific person and case? And also the dosage form will matter. So the preference of the person, are they willing to take this dosage form? B, is this dosage form appropriate for the condition and for, is it going to reach its destination with that dosage form? And I bring this up too a lot with the sinuses. Right now I have like sinus things going on. So an inhalation, a steam inhalation is a great way for medicine or herbal essential oils to get in there, because they're going to reach everywhere, right, in the sinuses. And that may be an appropriate thing here, as well as some irrigations and other things. So it's not only always like going to be ingestion, or sometimes we want to bypass the hepatic breakdown and all of that. So we know all that from pharmacy, and that translates to herbalism.
Oh, interesting. I mean, I love that tie-in at the end. The kind of the elements of route of administration, like what is the most appropriate depending on the symptoms or on the location of what's going on. If it's a skin-related element, can we avoid the systemic exposure? All of those pieces. But Marina, I know you described all of these things very well. But for me, give me a case that Kevin walks into the pharmacy and Marina sees him and goes, how do you start breaking down like my person energetics, and then say that I've got a sore throat, going on? How do you then break down those other pieces of the plant energetics and the condition energetics to match those all together for me as an individual patient that you're treating?
Yeah, absolutely. So it is easy to start with the condition and the plans. That's the easiest. So if you have a limited amount of time, those are what I would focus on. If I'm working
Yeah.
with a person more in depth, then of course I get to know them as a person and what balance looks like for them. But the main two I would say is probably the condition and the plan, just to start off with as a quick pharmacy triage,
Yeah.
and it's very simple, right? So we have those go-to plants that if you trust and know and have studied and worked with, we call them plant allies, like your favorite plants that you really know well. So those can go as like your go-tos, and they could really be applicable in many conditions because plants don't just have one active ingredient, which is why they're
Yep.
more complex, and they have multiple energetic levels going on as far as like what they're doing in the body in these different dosage forms. So that's one way to approach it, is to know certain plants really well and then know how to apply it in different, different dosage forms, as well as different formulations, different proportions, and this is how you start to formulate. Number two is there are different traditions you could follow in different schools of thought. So our next episodes are going to dive into some intros to Ayurveda and to Chinese medicine. There's also Western American herbalism. Those are the three that I practice in. And so you can apply the system of formulation and of the energetics based on these systems. And the fourth kind of level is like what you know from anatomy and physiology, what you know from the Western training. That's another kind of lens that you can view the traditions from and the conditions from. So I kind of like mix and match all of them depending on the situation. But say you come to me with a sore throat, I will want to ask you a couple more questions, like does it hurt to swallow? Describe the pain, right? So we want to just get clear on the energetics of how that's presenting, get really clear on the symptoms. And that's twofold, right? Because we want to understand and assess like how serious is this? Should it be appropriately, treated with self-care, and can I recommend something, or is it something that I suspect you may have like strep throat and you might want to go get tested? So number one is like just ask the qualifying questions. Is it appropriate for a self-care option? You might still want to tell them like if it doesn't go away in a couple of days with these things, you should still see what's going on, if it's something that needs an antibiotic, because sometimes it does, right? Especially if it's strep. So we want to ask how long has it been going on, describe the pain, what have you tried, all of these things. And then once the symptom becomes clear and you determine, okay, it's an appropriate thing that you might try to treat at home, then we go to, okay, which plants, right? Which herbs can help? What's the dosage form? So for the sore throat, it makes sense to put something directly into the throat that's going to
Mhm.
linger and stay there for a while and coat the throat, especially if it's painful and it's painful to swallow. And even if somebody's on antibiotics, you can also combine the herbal. It doesn't have to be mutually exclusive. It could help each other.
Oh yeah.
So we want to alleviate the pain and discomfort, and the herbs are actually going to help your immune system start clearing things up, with or without the antibiotics. So it could either be used in conjunction or in some cases instead of, if you're ruling out nasty bacteria. So anyhow, so I love my throat sprays. That's my go-to, and things that are antimicrobial. So
Mhm.
targeting both like a potential viral and a bacteria infection, right? So something that stimulates the immune system. So I love things like propolis, spilanthes, echinacea, usnea. So that's all kind of to target what is causing the sore throat potentially. And then energetically, something to coat it, to soothe it, to make it lubricated,
Mhm.
and to also decrease maybe some swelling and inflammation that could be going on. So I love licorice. I love marshmallow root, things like thyme, THYME. There's a lot of plants, and so when you start looking at the ingredients on some of these bottles and formulations, you'll see that they are formulated with all of that in mind. So I love products that have a combination of these things, so that it's targeting like everything you want to target for a sore throat.
Wow. So So one thing for the audience to know, one thing that Marina and I are starting to do some alpha and beta kind of testing in is starting to incorporate more and more herbalism and herbal remedies inside of community pharmacies. And so some interesting things, just that conversation in general is thinking we have a pharmacist or a pharmacy team that has a patient coming in, and typically, they're going to the cough and cold aisle. Here's the options in the allopathic way of you've got these symptoms, here's the treatments that we have for you. So from an incorporation standpoint, Marina, let's say that someone wants to start with just the two energetics you kind of mentioned. I feel like the energetics for the individual person, as you really alluded to, is personal. Like you need to know them quite well, and what they do, what they're connected to, what they may respond to best, the type of individual they are. But the other two, are a little more streamlined, for an individual process, right? So
Yeah.
within that kind of space, when we're talking about a pharmacy incorporating more herbalism and herbal treatments inside of there, what are some like little tidbits as we let the audience go on cliffhangers, just to let them know, like, here's some easy starts that you guys could go with that would allow you to be able to bring in these energetic principles into your practice.
Yeah, I would say it's more about the qualifying, as I mentioned. So, like, just really get clear on how it's felt and perceived, the symptom level, right? Just get really clear on what is the symptom, what can that be telling us, and then how do you match that to potentially an herbal remedy. So if it's like the throat is like scratchy and dry and painful, then you want something cooling and lubricating and moistening. And sometimes it's not an infection. Sometimes it's like laryngitis and like sore voice and, people that use their voice a lot. So you may not need the antimicrobial stuff and you just want them to drink a lot of tea that has the lubricating things. So just get clear, and ask questions to qualify and describe that energetic principle so that you can know, all right, how do I alleviate all those things?
Got it. And so when you're getting into those details, is it really almost a formulary suggestion, Marina, that you're seeing like, here's the energetics of these plants, and then I can match those up with the symptoms that may be presented by the patient population that I'm treating in general, and becoming very comfortable with, your armamentarium, maybe a poor word choice, but your list of the
Yeah.
medication that you're comfortable with going to for an individual symptom, and becoming more comfortable with how that's going to progress in the patients it worked well in. Okay, that's really
Yeah.
helpful. I'm sure that those insights would be an easy way for someone to start on just adding a few herbal products, into their
Mhm.
pharmacies and giving some opportunities. Any parting words, Marina, for our audience? This has been fantastic, by the way. And thank you everybody for the comments on Facebook. Those are all very encouraging. And Marina and I will jump back in and hit you back up. And if you have any other questions, even after we stop going live, then please send them Marina and I's way. We're always happy to connect. And also connect with us on RPH Ally on Marina's Herbalism channel to get more info. Marina, to you.
Yeah, so I think you're referring to Materia Medicas, right? Plant monographs. So if you know them really well and you have energetics as part of your guiding principles, it's not just like, okay, this plant has this constituent which does this. Like you use all of it. You use the constituents, you use the energetics, you use what it's usually like used for, you use the data, you use your own experience, and then you know that, okay, now you can recommend it. And it doesn't only work in the throat. If we're like treating the throat or targeting the throat, it also has other things. So maybe if the person has constipation or other things going on, the plan is going to be targeting multiple things, depending on the dosage form again. So that's when the whole person also comes back in, when this person not only has a sore throat, has like 10 other things that are going on, and then okay, this plan actually hits like 8 of those, so let me choose that plan.
Love it. That is the best deprescribing advice you guys will get for a really long time. Find stuff that works for multiple things, not multiple things for one thing.
Yep.
Marina, we will talk again next time. Thanks for a wonderful episode. Everybody that tuned in, thank you. And we will talk to you soon. Have a great rest of the day.
Bye-bye.